Hey there, guys. Welcome back. This is Sarah Nicole Nadler, your host, and this week I'm very excited. We have a special topic and spooky. This is actually our last live event before December. So traditionally, every single year, I take a big step back from my business in November to focus on my author career. And this year is no exception. I am actually taking a full step back in November. I will not be taking on any new clients, no live events on Monday. And I will be working on NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. We try to write an entire book in a single month. So if you're local to Kansas City, go ahead and ask me any questions you have about that, because I am going to be supporting our local Shut Up and Write community throughout NaNoWriMo. But for those of you who are business owners and came here for the 7 hacks, let's get started and dive right into this. So as a nod to Halloween, I thought it would be fun to do something kind of spooky. So these are hacks that are so good they're spooky. Lame? Yes. Are they awesome tips? Yes. So grab a pen and paper. We're going to dive right in. First of all, disclaimer, I am a licensed professional financial advisor. However, this video is not specific financial advice meant for you. It's actually purely for educational purposes only, okay? I highly recommend that you sit down one-on-one with a financial professional to look over your business, your finances before making any decisions to act on the information. But this is some good education we're gonna cover today, so make sure you grab a pen and paper and let's get started. The thing you see on the screen right now is actually an excerpt from one of my online courses where I talk about the 6 stages of business growth. This is available for free right here on Facebook inside my Facebook community. So if you would like access to that, comment free course below and I will make sure that my team or I sends the link to you. But if you think about it, when we're first starting a business, there are certain actions we need to take to really make sure that that business gets off on the right foot. Those actions are going to be taken in the validate stage of business. Validate means to ensure something is valid. In other words, we're going to make sure our business idea is valid, right? All the way up through building it, launching it, breaking through. For those of you who aren't familiar with the method that I teach, breakthrough means that we're making more than we spend in the business, and also we're making enough to pay ourselves and our entire team a living wage. So when we hit that amount, it means you can quit your 9-to-5, you can go full-time in your business, you can, et cetera, right? Like now you have a real business. You've broken through. So when we hit breakthrough stage, there's certain actions we need to take. And then from there, the rest of your career will be spent scaling your business. That's what we're trying to do. Usually it's 10% growth year on year that we're shooting for, 10% or more, right? And then eventually you get to the point where you're ready to retire or jump ship and you want to go to a new career, build a new business, start some new venture, etc. So you exit your business, usually by selling it or passing it on to your kids, etc. So at each one of the stages of business, there's very specific things you need to be focusing on. And oftentimes I see business owners making the mistake of doing the things that worked in validate stage, but you're actually in scale stage and those things aren't going to work for you anymore, right? Or you're in validate stage and you see what all the big kids are doing. You're like, oh, I'm going to do what that influencer is doing on social media. And you completely skip validate stage and you try to just start scaling your business. And of course you run through a lot of money and don't actually end up being profitable. So I'm going to share some of the common tips I have for each stage of business. So let's start with the startups. If you are in startup stage, you have a business idea, but no actual business yet. You don't have any paying customers. You're just kind of like throwing ideas at the wall. Here is my number 1 tip for how to get your profitable business launched. And that is focus on finding product market fit. Now, if you go to Google, you'll find a great definition for product market fit. But I'm going to kind of explain it here. First of all, we have to understand who is your market. A market is the sum total of all the potential buyers. So who are your potential buyers? Maybe it's everyone is a potential buyer, but most of the time there's a small selection of people. It's like a demographic, certain age group, certain gender, certain problem that person is having that makes them a good fit for your products or services, right? So when we find out who our market is, The next thing we need to do is survey your intended market to find out whether or not someone would pay to solve the problem that your business will offer to solve. In other words, we need to get feedback from our target audience to make sure that what we think is a good business idea is something the market actually wants and is willing to pay for. Okay, so that's my tip number one is don't start building your website. Don't start investing in an office space or buying your equipment or anything like that until you've done a survey. A great example of this is one of my clients right now is looking to open a second location of their business across the country. So they're based in Oregon. They're thinking about putting a new location out here in the Midwest. And so, of course, I've been helping them to do that. And the very first thing we're going to do is we surveyed their target audience to make sure that the same things, the same needs and wants and desires and the same things that make them tick are the same here as they were in Oregon, because people, right? Like we know this, if you just look at the political stances of people in various different cities, you know that people in Oregon don't always necessarily think the same way or act the same way as people in Kansas or Missouri or other areas of the Midwest, right? So it's important to survey when you're opening a new location or if you are validating your offer for the first time. So that's tip number one. Before you go spending a bunch of money building your business, make sure you validate your offer, okay? All right, now if you are in the build stage of business, you've already got a validated offer. You've got lots of people in your target audience who are telling you, yes, I would totally pay for that. Here's what I want out of it. Here's what I hope would be the outcome if I paid for it. Now it's time to start building it. And here's my number two tip for profitability, okay, is when you're building it, focus on minimum viable product. So what does minimum viable product mean? Well, again, you can go to Google to find a great definition of this. Here's the one I found that I liked a lot is minimum viable product is a version of a product with just enough features to be usable by early customers who can then provide feedback for future product development. In other words, we're going to just build out the bare bones minimum of this thing, and we're going to run it through some customers and ask them for feedback at the end before we go build the whole thing. Okay, this is very, very important. I usually call this a pilot, or it's also been known as a beta. If you're familiar with having something in beta, it means that they're like still testing it out. Could still be some kinks they're trying to work out through it, right? That is a very important part of the profitability process, is making sure we test things with your target audience before we build out the rest. So minimum viable product is what we're looking for. For example, in the coaching and consulting space, right? A very common mistake I see is people like get ClickFunnels and their web designer for a couple $1,000s, and they pay a branding expert a couple $1,000s, and they spend all this money to build this brand when they've never sold anything, right? So you've heard this phrase before, like sell it before you build it. You don't need to sell the entire thing before you build anything. But for example, you can start a business coaching business with an email address, like a free Gmail, right? And a payment link like Stripe or Square, right? Which are totally free. Good. You put those two things together. Maybe you take like a Word document and you write a little summary of what your coaching program is going to offer, and bam, you've got a coaching business. Okay. It's not difficult. Maybe once you've started to make money, you also print some business cards and put up a landing page or a funnel or a website, right? But those things can wait until you've made your first buck, okay? So in most businesses, we can get away with a lot more in minimum, a lot more minimalism than most people think. They're like going after the flashy, fancy stuff, which is fine if you've got capital. If you're sitting on a cool $2 million and you want to invest that in a potential business, then that's totally up to you. I would never recommend that as a financial advisor. That's a very risky investment to make, right? Investing in a business that's never made a single dollar, that's a pretty risky investment. So I would recommend focusing on minimum viable product until the product has proven itself by making a few dollars, and then you can start gradually investing in more infrastructure, etc. Okay, there are certain industries where you do have to make a certain commitment in terms of you need an office space, or maybe you need equipment, or you need a car, but again, like, do you need a brand new Mercedes Sprint van, or can you get away with something that's maybe a little bit older but still looks nice on the outside, but on the inside she's seen better years, right? Like, okay, good, we can get away with that and save ourselves $120,000 on the Mercedes Sprint van. So think with minimum viable product when you're in the build stage of business. Now, one thing I want to caution you on is I keep referencing these stages of business because focusing on minimum viable product when you're in scale stage, right? Like when you have a successful business and you're being stingy and you're like, oh, I don't want to pay to upgrade anything. That's actually a limiting belief. Yeah, that's a total limiting belief, because if you aren't willing to spend the money, you're not going to make the money, and improving your image will increase your income, right? So in build stage, we want to focus on minimum viable product. This is not something we want to hold on to as a limiting belief for the rest of your business career, okay? But in this stage of business, it's vital, absolutely vital as a profitability tip. All right, tip number 3. When you hit the launch stage business, so now you've built minimum viable product, you've validated your offer, so you know it's going to sell, and you've started to generate lots of interest and buzz, and people are hopping on your wait list and all that, and now it's time to pull the trigger. So what do we focus on in terms of the profitability of the business? Where should you invest your money? Where should you invest your time in this stage of business? Well, I'll tell you right now, you should invest your time and invest your money into mastering client attraction. This is a skill set. It's not something you're probably born with. I would say very few people are born with natural sales and marketing ability, the ability to generate leads, the ability to just close things like a door. That is not normal, okay? So if you're beating yourself up because you're not naturally good at those things, stop beating yourself up. You're actually normal if you're not good at that, okay? So investing your time, investing your money in the launch stage of business on mastering marketing and sales, and that includes things like learning to outsource, learning how to hire people, learning how to manage a team, learning graphic design or outsourcing graphic design, right? Learning how to select a good graphic designer, or copywriting, that's a skill you can learn yourself, or again, learning how to select a good copywriter. Whether you're going to do it yourself, you're going to delegate it, it really depends on a couple of things. One, how much capital do you have, and are you willing to invest in the beginning? Because remember, at this stage, we haven't made any money yet, right? And 2, how much time do you have? If you have more time but less money, then invest in learning the skill yourself. If you have more money and less time, invest in hiring somebody to do it for you competently, right? Same with the sales team. You can certainly hire a sales team from day one if you've got the money, right? If you've got the cash. If you don't have the cash, then invest your time into learning sales presentation and learning how to close. So that's tip number 3. When you're in launch stage, is really learn how to master client attraction. All right, tip number 4, delegate. This becomes especially important in the breakthrough stage. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who got this far on their own 2 feet, and you're a solopreneur, right? And you've done a fantastic job building a business from scratch all by yourself. But there becomes a point where that streak of independence becomes a limiting belief, okay? It's like a only me kind of attitude that can prevent you from scaling. It can prevent you from growing, because eventually you will get to the point where you are doing as much work as one gal or one guy can do in a day. And it's time to turn that over and learn how to delegate it and get it turned over to other people. So I say a person is in breakthrough stage when they have consistently made more than they spent for 3+ months, 3 months or more, okay? and you're able to quit your job, you're able to go full time, you're able to pay yourself a decent salary from your business alone. Now it's time to start focusing on breakthrough stage. And breakthrough stage is when we are setting up the business, really getting it super hyper organized, putting the systems and processes in place to make it scalable. Okay. Learning how to do income forecasting is kind of tip 4.5. Okay. But I'm not going to go into that too deeply today. But if you're interested in learning more about how to do income forecasting, please reach out to me. But that is tip number 4, is when you're in that breakthrough stage, the best place to focus on in order to increase your profitability is actually hiring people. And I know a lot of people, a lot of business owners tell me like, oh, I can't afford to hire, but I can't tell you how many times I've taken a look at a business owner's budget and gone, you think you can't afford to hire, but actually, if we added this person, your income would increase so much that you would not only be able to hire that person and pay them who you just hired, you would also have more profit. So sometimes it can be a little bit counterintuitive in that way. And that's when it's important to sit down with a financial advisor who is familiar with business budgeting, and not just a financial advisor who's like an expert on the stock market, right? Like that's fantastic for them, but that doesn't help you as a business owner, right? So working with a financial advisor who understands business budgeting can help you look at your budget and decide, does it actually make more sense to spend money on hiring someone, because then I'm going to make even more money in my business. Okay. So that's something to think about. All right. Tips number 5 through 7 are what I call the 3 R's. And this is for anyone who's in scale stage. So once you've broken through in your business and you're just focusing on scaling year after year after year, this is going to be the majority of your career, right? Like maybe you struggled for the first, 2 to 3 years to build your business to the point where you could go full time. Maybe you struggled for the first 2 months and you instantly, finish whatever it took for you to get up through breakthrough stage. The rest of your career, the rest of your time in business is going to be spent in the scale stage. And the best tips I have for you on how to remain profitable as you scale is to use the 3 R's. So what are the 3 R's? Well, the first one is referrals. Second one is reactivation. And the third one is re-signups. So let's talk about what that means and how you do it. First of all, referrals. So referrals are when we ask an existing client or a past client to bring their friends and family, bring their colleagues, etc. And usually we are incentivizing that client to bring us a referral. So here are just 3 tips for how to do this. I have an entire program where I teach exactly how to do this successfully, but here's just a couple of tips, okay? Number 1, identify your top clients. You don't necessarily want to ask that one client who always drives you crazy, or the guy who rarely pays his bill on time. Like, you don't need to ask those people for a referral, right? We don't necessarily want the top 5 or 10 people they spend the most time around, right? So instead, let's ask our best clients for a referral, all right? Tip number 2, track your new clients from word of mouth. Make sure you have a system in place to track who referred them so you can thank that person, right? That is going to help you get even more referrals down the road. And number 3, like I said, establish rewards. Now, in some industries and in some states, it's actually illegal to incentivize a referral. So make sure you are checking with a lawyer and you're familiar with the rules and guidelines around your industry specifically. But generally speaking, it can be a good idea to thank the person with some kind of monetary reward. Could be a gift card, could be money on account in your business, which invites them to come back, right? There can be all kinds of very good ideas out there. And I'm sure you guys can think of some and brainstorm that. The second R is reactivation. This is when we are going to past clients and finding ways to get them to come back to you. I'm sure you can think of examples of this in retail, right? Like email blasts that go, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Come back in for your dental appointment. Come back in for your next shot of Botox, like whatever, right? Come back in for another Sprite, right? Like whatever. There's plenty of brands out there who are very good at reactivation. Email marketing is one great way to do this. But what I like to do is keep a record of all past clients inside a CRM, customer relationship management software, right? And every 6 months, have your team go through your list of past clients and identify who needs to be reactivated, and then compose a personal letter to those people, keeping it very personalized, very warm, very welcoming, and invite them to come back. Now, as your business scales, it will become less and less possible to send a personal letter to every single one of your past clients, right? Like eventually you're going to have too many clients to do that with. So what I recommend instead is just do the A's. Then the next month you do the B's, then do the C's, then do the D's, etc. Right? So every 2 years you'll have gotten to each client, which is a good way to do it if you don't have any other way to get to them all every 6 months. Every 6 months, I think, is the most often I would do that because we don't want to be harassing past clients constantly, right? And then if you can, if your schedule allows for it, personal contact a week after you sent the letter is a really great way to do it. If you're sending it by email, then usually like 24, 48 hours after you sent the email, try calling them just once. Always leave a voicemail or text them if you happen to have their number, right? And just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a little while. Would you like to come back in for another facial, another, nails, nail appointment, or whatever it is that you offer to your clients. Okay, so that's reactivation. I will tell you guys, especially for those of you who are in like the 7 and 8 figure range, I have gone into businesses and done just this alone and had them have a 3 times ROI on having paid me to come do that in the first 24 hours. Okay, so this can be very powerful. Don't overlook it. Don't put it on the back burner. It should be front and center of your marketing strategy. If you're spending money on paid ads, but you're not reactivating, you're leaving so much money on the table. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. And then lastly, we have re-signups. So re-signups is when we basically take, okay, this is the thought I want you to have when you're thinking of re-signups, right? Go through your customer base and ask yourself this question. What need does this person have because they bought from me? So if you're doing nails, okay, well, a person who gets their fingernails done probably needs a pedicure too, right? That would be an upsell. That would be a re-sign. If they got their nails done last week, but they haven't come in for a pedicure in 3 weeks, then you could reach out to them like, hey, I know you always get your hands done with us. Are you interested in getting your nails, your toes done next time you come in, right? If they buy a house from you because you're a real estate agent, what do they need now that they have a house? Okay, so maybe they're interested in commercial investing, right? Maybe they're interested in purchasing real estate for investment purposes. If you don't do commercial or you don't really do investment real estate, then think about what other vendors they might need because they bought a home and collaborate, form partnerships and collaborations with other businesses that will either give you some kind of kickback or they can advertise through you. You can charge them for advertising and have like a little welcome kit for your new homeowner, right? Where that tells them like the dentist in town, the best place to buy a new fridge, best place to get their lawn done and whatnot, right? So think about these collaborations, ways you can partner with other businesses and increase the income of your business without yourself having to do those services, right? So that's another option for re-signups. And these are all ways that I have helped my clients to increase their profitability. A great example of this one I just thought of is one of my clients is an eye doctor, and they have an extra room upstairs. They own their building and they use mostly just the bottom floor. They had kind of an unutilized space upstairs. And so we ended up renting that out to a girl who does lashes. Like, well, great. She's bringing in her clients to do lashes and they're having to walk by the eye doctor to go see the lashes girl. So of course they were getting new clients out of that. Plus they were getting the rent that the girl was paying to use their space, right? So that's like 2 in 1. So think about these opportunities that might exist for your business by creating some kind of re-sign up, something that they could sign up for again and again and again after they've bought from you. Okay, can also be just increasing your value ladder. If they bought something for $17, what's the upsell from that? Where's the $25 thing? Where's the $1,000 thing? Where's the $30,000 coaching program or whatever, right? So that's another great way to increase the customer lifetime value of your business, which also, of course, will help increase your profitability. All right, so I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I hope you found that a lot of fun, and I will see you all in December. If you have any questions for me in the meantime, feel free to comment below. I'll be sure to swing back around. But as I said before, for anybody who didn't catch the beginning, I am taking a break from my business in November as normal. I'll be focusing on my human rights campaigns and focusing on NaNoWriMo, which stands for National Novel Writing Month. I'm going to be focusing on my author career for the next couple of weeks. So have a wonderful holiday, and I'll talk to you guys soon.